With an approval rating in freefall, the Deputy Prime Minister resigning 2 weeks after the start of the second year in government, the economy currently in a stagnation, and a scandal involving one of the world's most famous criminals currently, it looks like this could be the end of Keir Starmer as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and I'm going to go through all of this and break it all down. My name is Alex on Politics. This is my channel for long-form content where we discuss politics and other information. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. This is going to be a good video. Make sure to follow my TikTok as well and all of my socials, links in the description. So the first thing that I'm going to start off with is obviously the approval ratings and the favourability of this current government. Now, as of September the 17th, YouGov did an approval poll, and only 11% of people said that they approve of the Labour government, with 72% of people saying that they disapprove. Now that is an insane statistic. That's a 61 or minus 61 disapproval rating, which is mental. Keir Starmer's personal approval rating doesn't get much better, with only 19% of people approving of his job as Prime Minister, with 62% of people disapproving. Now, the third type of polling, which I'm going to include in this, is the current voting intentions. And I've got here a graph which aggregates all of the current pollsters that go around, and they aggregate all of their scores to find out where exactly the voting intention is looking like as an average. And Labour are currently in second place behind Reform UK. They've gone from winning 35% of the vote in the general election to now only getting 20% on average of the current voting intentions, and they are about 12% behind the party in first. And this is obviously aggregated to how Election Maps UK has predicted it, and they've said that by these current voting intention polls, Labour are only set to win 107 seats at the next election, which is 304 seats down from the last election. Now, with all of these polls put together and all of these, everything, the information I've just given you, this is completely unprecedented, right? We have never seen a government come into power and lose this much support since polls were around. I mean, it is staggering to see the loss of support for this government and the loss of approval. There are so many reasons as to why this could be. For example, a lot of people have been saying, well, they've been going too far to the right. Some people have been saying they're pandering for people who are never going to vote for them. Some people are saying they've been weak in their leadership and they haven't shown backbone, especially on their foreign policy with Donald Trump, for example. It's not a great look if you're 1 year into your government and you're already 80% of the public are not planning on voting for you, and only 11% of them actually approve of what you're doing. 1 year in, this is not a good look at all, and I think this is one of the main reasons as to why Labour are probably going to be looking to change their leadership soon. I mean, a lot of people put this blame on Starmer, and they say that this is his leadership, this is his responsibility, and he's not doing the right job, so we should get rid of him. But these statistics are not good. There isn't a good statistic or isn't a good poll of the British people that actually is in favour for him. Apart from the fact that the only poll that is really in his favour is that people would rather him be Prime Minister than the rest of the other party leaders. Bearing in mind the current government approval rating is about the same amount as when Rishi Sunak's government after he called the general election. It is roughly the same percentage of people approve of them. Moving on to the second thing which could signal the end of Keir Starmer's tendency, and that is his Deputy Prime Minister resigning 2 weeks after, or 1 or 2 weeks after the second year of his government began. Now, I'll give you a brief overview of the story. Angela Rayner bought a house in Hove for about £800,000. And when she bought it, she paid the standard rate of stamp duty rather than the second home rate of stamp duty, which meant that she underpaid by about £40,000. And the reason that she thought that she didn't have to pay that was because she had sold her stake in her old house, her old family's house, and put it into her child's fund, so that she no longer had interest in another property, which would mean that she would have to pay the additional rate of stamp duty. After the media got wind of this, she was forced to admit that she had made an error, and she had to be referred to the Independent Advisor on Ministerial Standards, and they concluded that she had broken ministerial code, and the breach was that she hadn't actually obtained specialist tax advice given the complexity of her situation. Now, she had to resign because obviously she'd broken the ministerial code, and also because she held a very high office in the current government, Deputy Prime Minister as well as the Housing Secretary, and it's not a very good look if she is obviously trying to set an example for this government, and she is, breaking ministerial code as to what they've concluded, as well as being the Housing Secretary and underpaying on what she should have paid for her house whilst being the Housing Secretary. Well, it's not a good look, and so she had to resign for it, and I think this is, once again, another big reason as to why this could be the end for Keir Starmer. I don't think this has a great deal to do with him personally, But I think that this is still him as a collective government, and they're thinking she knows that she should have got specialist tax advice. She knows that she could potentially have this problem here, and then it's a bit of trust between her and Starmer. A lot of people saw her as the successor to Starmer, and I think that it just rubs salt into the wound of the government's other faults, really. And I think that a lot of people are using that to say that this government is unfit for office, Starmer should resign, and so and so. But it's not necessarily a big reason as to why people want Starmer to leave. That's more of just the government as a whole. Now, the third thing is going to be a stagnating economy. Now, the economy in the 2024 general election was the most important issue for voters, and Labour came in and one of their main promises was that they were going to stabilise the economy and get it growing in the future. And in some respects, I guess they've done that, in the sense that we are now one of the fastest growing economy in G7. However, that has been overshadowed by the fact that the economy has only really grown 1%. In fact, in July it grew by 0%, and I think in March it actually contracted by about 0.1%. Borrowing costs are at an all-time high. The black hole that has been created by the budget and the spending review isn't exactly closing the one that was under the Tories, and I think this is another main reason as to why people think that Starmer should go. Rachel Reeves has been under scrutiny pretty much since the day that she got the office of the Chancellor. A lot of people thought that with after Rayner resigning, with the cabinet shuffle, she would be out of her position because she's been deeply unpopular, especially after her budget. A lot of people think that Starmer's putting the wrong trust in her, and that he should go as well because he keeps her in the job and they're not very happy with what she's doing. And I think that's another main problem for voters. And I think that's another reason as to why Starmer could go. I mean, if your main promise was to stabilise the economy, and majority of people don't think you're actually stabilising the economy. I mean, Rachel Reeves has got an approval rating of about 15%. It's not a good look, and this is another thing that could really cost Starmer. And then the final reason, and I think this would be the main reason if he is set to resign or be ousted by his party, will be this current scandal with Peter Mandelson. Now, Peter Mandelson obviously being the UK's ambassador to the USA after Starmer came into office, and he has been recently found out to have had a lot of a closer connection with a very notorious criminal at the moment, Jeffrey Epstein, and that's not a good look. So recently, some emails and communications from Peter Mandelson to Jeffrey Epstein have been released. For example, an email which said, that encouraged Epstein to fight for release. That is a quote. There were messages that Mandelson describes Epstein as his best pal and expressed deep sympathy for him. However, the Foreign Office said that the depth and extent of the relationship is different to what they knew when they appointed him at the start of their term. Now, a number of problems with this has been released. For example, it's been reported that Mandelson was appointed before a proper and deep, thorough vetting process had actually taken place. Therefore, these messages now hadn't been covered, and they assumed that he had a very vague relationship with Epstein at the time. And it has just created this big problem now for Starmer, where it's like, are you sure you really didn't know what was going on? I mean, it's hard to imagine that a government in the UK would actually hire someone that they physically knew had a close relationship with Epstein, because of how disgusting you would have to be to have a good relationship with that guy. And I think that if you're a government that's trying to, champion safety for women and girls, and are trying to support, sexual abuse victims, all of this, and to appoint someone in a very high office that's got a lot of diplomatic power with our greatest ally, who was actively involving himself within someone who was doing the opposite of what the government is standing for, that's not okay. And I think that this is a big problem that Starmer has, especially if he had known this whole time of how close his relationship was. I don't want to see someone who is that close to Epstein in my government. I think that's a disgrace towards the British people to hire someone who knew about this stuff. But I think this is the thing that Starmer will resign for if it becomes a greater problem. Starmer said when Mandelson was first appointed that he deeply regretted any association that he had with Jeffrey Epstein. However, Starmer still hired him, but then last week fired him and said that if he had known what he had done back then, he would have never appointed him in the first place. Which then begs the question, which is like, well, you should have let your thorough vetting process go through, considering that you knew he had some ties with Jeffrey Epstein, and it sounds like it's a bit of a scapegoat. And I think that if Starmer is to go, that is going to be the main thing that he will resign for. Of course, guys, that was quite a longer video, and that's pretty much all I'm going to say for now. Those are the 4 main reasons why I think that this could be the end for Keir Starmer. If you enjoyed them or want to put your own opinion, put them in the comments, like the video, subscribe. if you enjoyed it as well. Follow my TikTok, follow my socials, links in the description, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.